What is going on, everybody? My name is Dakota and welcome back to Cologne. Today we are going to be going over some of my more complimented fragrances over this past year. This was a requested video. I'm going to keep this one short. It's only going to be about 5 or 6 fragrances, but without further ado, let's get into it. So this is going to span the course of the whole year. So some of these are going to be fresh, some of these are going to be dark, rich, and heavy. So it is going to be a little bit all over the place, but this is just going to be the fragrances that I've noticed the most compliments I got from, or someone left a compliment that was just top tier. So we are going to kick off this list with arguably the cheapest fragrance on this list, and this one was one of the more complimented ones, and that is going to be Fragrance World's Liquid Brun. This thing, for being a new release, as people know, this is a clone of Parfums de Marly Altair. Arguably, this is one of the best clones that I have smelled in general, as far as being so close. Because I would say this thing is like 95% close. What you also get with some of that closeness to Altair, you get the richest vanilla fragrance that you could probably have out there. This thing is such a creamy, sugary, vanilla, just gourmand bomb. And on top of that, has amazing performance. This is definitely a fall and winter fragrance. I would not recommend wearing this in summer at all. But since this one has come in, I've probably worn it 8 or 9 times. And every single time I've worn this fragrance, I always get people asking me what I'm wearing, where can they get it, something along those lines. But even though this is a newer fragrance in my collection, it has immediately come a top tier winter fragrance for me. This is one that if you can get your hands on it, I highly recommend you do so, especially if you're a gourmand lover. This thing has such a rich, deep, thick vanilla note to it that it just smells premium. For everything you get out of this, top tier. This bottle can be had for like 48, 50 bucks. I got mine off Joma's shop. At the point where I got mine, I think it was only like 29 or 30. It was really, really cheap. Every now and then you'll catch this one on sale already. It's already getting down into the $30 to $40 range, but I think the everyday price is right around that $50. But yeah, that is what's going to kick us off. And again, that is Fragrance World's Liquid Brun. Alrighty, so next up on the list was actually going to be a summer fragrance, and that is going to be Mont Blanc Legend Blue. This thing, to me, smells eerily similar to Parfums de Marly Sedley. Sedley being my favorite summer fragrance. So when I did finally get my hands on this, I wore this thing a lot. Especially for the price point that you can get this at, for the quality you get out of this. This has such a beautiful, like sandalwood, patchouli, mint kind of dry down that stays a little bit sharp. It's got a little bit of spiciness to it. But it also has a really, really good floral background. Just touches of that sandalwood floating around in the back of it. It is a little more of a simple and linear scent. This one on the dry down really doesn't change from the opening, but I don't want this one to because it smells so good. This is one that every time you wear it, it has good performance. It leaves a good sillage. And on top of that, like I said, with that scent quality that you get for that scent profile that you get, this one was a standout summer banger for me. And coming in next summer, I will be wearing this one a lot. And one of the best things about this fragrance right now is you can pick this up off discounters for that $40, $50 range. It's another one that is really easy on the wallet. You can spray heavy, you can spray light. This one is extremely versatile. So pretty much from spring to fall, this could be an everyday wear. The only drawback to this one is during the winter months, you can't really wear this one a whole lot because it does get a little bit synthetic-y. This is one that reacts a little bit better to heat. Whenever it just gets that cold vibe to it, it does get a little bit synthetic-y, it gets a little bit harsh, and some of the notes just fall off a little bit too quickly. That actually is going to be the biggest determining factor from this one compared to Parfums de Marly Sedley, is Sedley in the winter months still smells absolutely amazing, but I'm comparing a $300 fragrance to a $50 fragrance, so that's really not fair. This thing is an absolute compliment monster in my collection. Coming next spring, coming next summer, I'll be reaching for this one like crazy. And again, that is going to be Mont Blanc Legend Blue. All right, so third up on the list is going to be Coach Platinum. This one is actually one of the easiest reaches that I have probably in my whole collection. This one I feel like is an incredibly underrated fragrance. So this one has a little bit of like a juniper leather kind of vibe to it. It is very simple. It's not very complex. It's incredibly straightforward from the opening all the way into the dry down. And its simplicity may be what works so well. Like I said, you don't have a whole lot going in here. But what you do have, it smells very natural. It smells very quality. It's got undertones of a little bit of sweetness, of a little bit of leather, of a little bit of a sandalwood going on in there. And the blend on it, like I said, is very simple. But sometimes simple and smooth will win the race. And that is exactly what this one's going to do. And I don't know that juniper is actually going to be a note in this. I've always gotten just a little bit of a berry vibe off of this. So I'm thinking like a green berry. Normally my brain goes to like a juniper or a currant or just something in that wheelhouse. Because a lot of the sweetness I get off of this isn't like that vanilla sweet. It's more of like a berry fruity kind of sweet. But what you get when you wear this fragrance is you're going to get a fragrance that'll last about 7-8 hours. You're going to get a fragrance that is incredibly easy to wear. And on top of that, this fragrance, and I did not do this on purpose, this fragrance is incredibly cheap. From discounters, you can get this fragrance for easily less than 50 bucks. I want to say this was a tester bottle. I think this was like 39 bucks. It was about a year ago, but I think it was only like 39 bucks back then. So a lot of these fragrances that's going to be on this list are going to be a little cheaper. They are going to be just a little bit more simple of a fragrance. So despite what people would love to believe, the big heavy hitting niche fragrances usually are not the more mass appealing compliment getting fragrances. It's going to be fragrances like these, the ones that are a little more simple, that are a little more straightforward. It's going to be ones that is just going to be more mass appealing. And a lot of the niche fragrances tend to be a little bit more standoffish. Now, those of us in the fragrance community, we love our niche fragrances. We love to smell a little bit different, a little bit standoffish, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking for a compliment factor, you ought to be looking for more basic and a little bit more simple. But with that being said, this third fragrance on the list is going to be Coach Platinum. All right, so next up on the list is actually going to be a brand new fragrance, and that is going to be Gucci Guilty Love Edition, the 2025. I've owned this fragrance for a little bit over a month. I've worn this about 4 or 5 times, and every single time I wear this, I've had at least one person stop and ask me where they can find it, what it is, and ask me about this fragrance. I don't know what Gucci did to this fragrance that was so different from some of the other Love Editions, but whatever they did, they absolutely did it right. Even after a month, my wife is still absolutely in love with this fragrance. She loves wearing it. It's really starting to grow on me more the more that I wear it. When I originally got this, I thought it was a little bit heavy. There was a couple things that I didn't like about it. And I don't know if my nose just matured around to it. I don't know if maybe it was once the thought got in my head, it changed my opinion a little bit. But every time I wear this, it just always comes back to it. This has such a nice floral sweetness to it that the fragrance itself is thick, but it's not heavy. This fragrance is a little bit aggressive on the opening. You get a good dose of muskiness. You get a little dose of that sweetness. You get a little tiny, the tiniest background note of leather. I don't get the leather note until it's further into the dry down, but you do just get like the tiny hints of it. But everyone that I've talked to about this fragrance, that they've had it or they've sampled it or tried it, they've absolutely loved it. This, I have a feeling, is going to be one of the more popular fragrances, especially moving forward into the springtime, because that's probably when I'm going to wear this one the most. Is this has such a nice, florally, kind of green muskiness to it that during the spring months when everything wants to come back in bloom, this thing is probably going to be a rock star. It's absolutely going to be in my rotation. But yeah, again, that is going to be Gucci's Love Edition. Alrighty, so last on the list, and arguably the hardest to get, is actually going to be Terence Hughes Slut Elixir. Again, I'm going to go ahead and apologize for the name. Some people are really not going to like the name. Some people aren't really going to like the creator. But putting all that aside, this fragrance is absolutely wonderful, and this fragrance is a compliment monster. This has a beautiful strawberry forward fruitiness to it. It's actually, this whole fragrance is incredibly sweet. It's dark, it's fairly rich. There is a lot of natural quality that goes into this fragrance that just helps it kind of boost past what some of the other fruity fragrances may be. The performance on this one is excellent. The main thing that is going to draw people to this fragrance is going to be its overwhelming sweetness. It's going to be some of the warmth that goes in here. It's going to be some of the wood notes that goes in here. This fragrance, to me, is arguably one of his most, if not his most complete fragrance. Now, the only drawback to this fragrance is now it is incredibly hard to get. And with some of the shape of how things are going, this fragrance may be even harder to get moving forward. But if I'm being honest about the list, I had to put it on it. This is not a discontinued fragrance. It is just incredibly hard to get. So for that reason, I went ahead and put it on the list. They're still somewhat easily found in some of the fragrance groups. There is quite a bit of stock here already. So if you really wanted this fragrance bad enough, it can be found there. But this fragrance does run a little bit on the spendy side, especially for the sizes that you get. But, and I can't stress this one enough, if you're looking for a fruity, sweet, just deep, dark, rich scent that is going to have all day lasting power, you may want to look into these and see if you can't find one. Because like I said, this thing is an absolute bomb. My wife absolutely loves this fragrance. I absolutely love this fragrance. This is one of the fragrances that in my collection that I will always try to get my hands on, and I'll always try to keep a little bit around, because this one is good almost in any occasion. About the only time you wouldn't be able to wear this is going to be high heat situations, because in that heat, this will get a little bit synthetic-y. The sweat will make this fragrance run off your skin, but when it comes to a lot of those deep, richer style of fragrances, that's pretty much going to happen with all of them. I can't really knock this one for doing what others do as well. But again, that is going to be Terence Hughes Slut Elixir. But I would also like to do a shout out fragrance real quick. This fragrance is already discontinued. It got discontinued incredibly quickly. And that is going to be Chanel Super Leggera. This fragrance was by far my most complimented fragrance. I wore this fragrance to work 2 or 3 different times. And in my building, I probably had 10 or 11 people in one day stop and ask me what I was wearing, where they could get it, what it was, everything. So as far as my most complimented fragrance of the year, it was this one by a landslide. This one got me more compliments in one day than I've ever gotten before. And like I said, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure Chanel has already discontinued this fragrance. Whenever they said this was a limited time run, normally companies will run them for like a year or so. I think this one was ran for a couple months, because I actually got this one retail from Dillard's. They got it. I want to say my local Dillard's had this for less than a month, and their stock ran out and they never got any past that. So if I'm not mistaken, I actually think this one already is discontinued. Now, as far as fragrance groups go, you can still find this. If you can get your hands on this, I highly recommend it. I absolutely love this fragrance. If this was a mass-produced fragrance, if this one was able to stay around, it would compete with Sedley as my absolute favorite summer fragrance ever. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. It is a little more simple, but some of the citrus you get off this, some of that freshness you get off this, some of the spicy that you can get out of this just smells absolutely amazing. But this one is going to be a shout out fragrance. And again, that's going to be Chanel Super Leggera. Alrighty, and that is going to get us wrapped up for today. This video did go a little bit longer than I thought it was going to. Hopefully y'all stuck around for the video. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the video. But one thing that I've got to say is that if you're wearing a fragrance solely to get compliments, a lot of these fragrances don't get near as many compliments as some people would like to say. As I said in this video, the most compliments I've ever gotten in one day was wearing that Chanel, and it was like 10 or 11. And now granted, that is a huge number. Like, that is the most I've ever gotten by a landslide. But I work in a building where I'm surrounded by close to 1,000 people. And even then, it only got 10 or 11. So the actual compliment factor of a lot of these fragrances aren't near as big as what a lot of people would like to claim and push them to be. But there is one thing I would like to touch on. If you want to get a compliment, you got to give a compliment. If you love receiving compliments, give compliments out to your fellow fragrance lovers. If you smell somebody, if you walk past somebody and you catch that they're smelling good, let them know. They might need that boost that day. So if you know somebody that's smelling good, just tell them, because if you like to receive the compliments, that means they're going to love to receive them as well. It's kind of a give and take thing. So try to make a good habit out of that. If you like giving compliments, go ahead and give a few compliments as well. But that is going to get us wrapped up for today. As always, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you everyone for subscribing, for sticking around, staying tuned, supporting the channel, listening to me yap about how fragrances smell. I truly appreciate it. And as always, we will see you next time.